So what we're going to do here is we're learning how to survey the text. And so we're going to talk about what that means. Specifically, you can see I'm learning to use strategies to quickly identify what an informational text is about. So when we survey a text, that's going to help us specifically with some of our nonfiction texts that give us information about different topics. And this is a picture. This is not me. I did not dress up. This is Miss Coram. I teach with her. I've taught with her at a different school, so she's awesome. She helped create some of these slides. So what does it mean to survey? Survey can be an action. It is a verb. You're looking carefully and thoroughly at something. And so it could be someone or something. You see the magnifying glass. When you look at a text, you're really looking carefully at all the clues. And so when we ask you this week to survey a text, we're asking you to look very carefully at what you see. And so a lot of times when we survey the text, you can survey by glancing at the big ideas that jump out at you visually, the headings, the titles, anything, the visuals. Ask yourself, what does it seem like this text is mostly about? Then you go back and read the text with that main idea in your mind. You check the facts and you learn to see if what you thought it was really does fit with that main idea statement that you came up with in your head. And so when you finish reading, you might have to revise or change or adjust that main idea statement based on some of the new information that you take in. And so that's what good readers do when they're surveying a text. And so you can see here, look at this visual. What does it show? So of course you see a man and it looks like maybe a younger daughter. And so as we look all over this text, it talks about Eleanor Roosevelt. And so many of you might have the background information that Eleanor Roosevelt was married to Franklin D. Roosevelt as we've begun to study Great Depression, the New Deal, moving into World War II. And so this is Eleanor as a young girl. It talks about here, born October of 1884. It talks about her. Eleanor dearly loved her father. As we read about this, her grandmother. You can look at the words, but before you even begin reading, these visuals tell us so much. And so here she is as a young girl. Here's a picture. It looks like she's older. She's grown. That looks similar here. It says right here, as you think, okay, looking at the visuals, this article seems to focus on Eleanor Roosevelt and her life as she's growing up, at least at this section of the text. Okay, and so by looking at these visuals, you get that in your mind. Okay, moving forward, the subheadings give us big clues. And so this subheading shows that the next paragraph is going to talk about Eleanor Roosevelt as the First Lady, married to FDR. And so even just looking at this picture, this might not tell you what we're learning about. Not quite sure if you don't know these people or recognize anybody. But the First Lady, and now if you know it's about Eleanor and you know that she's married to FDR, you can start to kind of say, okay, maybe that's him, maybe that's their family. And so as you read this, okay, you get to gather information and say, okay, can I adjust my ideas here, or was I right on? And so in order to move into texts that perhaps are a little longer, if you take a look at this book on Mayan, what does the title tell you? Well, it just says Eleanor Roosevelt. You see the picture here, you know it's about her, but what kind of clues can we get? Well, when we are surveying the text, part of that is looking carefully at the table of contents. You can synthesize or begin to understand a larger section of a text, like a whole book, by looking at the table of contents. Before you even read, at the beginning of reading, you can do that, and it really gives you a big picture. When we're surveying and looking and using our clues, this visually is going to run down the book. And so you can see here, we can locate certain topics about Eleanor Roosevelt just by understanding this table of contents page. And so if you know you're looking for something specific like her involvement in World War II, you can look at the section called Eleanor and the War. And so as you do research, as you're looking for specific things, that table of content is a visual that helps you survey and really dig deep in the text to look at the clues so you know what you're reading. So what you're going to do as far as practice here, you're going to survey two different texts. One of the texts is in Social Studies Weekly, so when you see the different steps, you'll have to open up to Social Studies Weekly, week 19. What is the United Nations? You're going to get an idea for what that is, and that'll give us some background knowledge for a lot of what we're going to be learning coming up. But then specifically, we're going to work on surveying the text in this MyOn book called Eleanor Roosevelt, First Lady of the World. And so you're going to read the whole book. It is a graphic novel, so it really is a quick read. And you can count this towards your 30 minutes, towards your 2 steps. But as you do this, you're going to, after you finish, answer a question. You're going to actually come up with some questions, a few, pretending you're the teacher about this book. But each time you open up a page, gather in, let your eyes take in what you see and start to survey and dig through what each section of the book is. And there'll be little chapters. Get an idea in your mind. And then as you read, do you have to adjust that, or were you correct, or what can you add, and use that knowledge to comprehend nonfiction texts?